Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Dare County Board of Elections. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. We have one board member yet to arrive. I'm sure he's on his way. But we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and start. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first order of business is one that we take as a delight. We have a new board member to swear in this morning, Tracy Swain. And Tracy, if you'll join me at the podium, and we'll use that microphone there. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come down. Do you want the Bible?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you say it and I repeat it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say this, and Tracy will repeat after me.
Okay.
I, Tracy Swain,
I, Tracy Swain,
do solemnly swear
that
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established for the government thereof,
which are or may be established for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state,
maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will well and truly execute
and that I will well and truly execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of member of the Dare County Board of Elections
of a member of the Dare County Board of Elections
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
according to law.
acco-
Go ahead.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, and welcome to our board.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mhm. Yep.
Your
Now I
seat is-
proceed
Your
up
seat
here.
is waiting.
Okay. No, she signs this. Okay. We can do it after the meeting. Okay.
All right, glad to have Tracy. We have a lot ahead of us. We have a second primary coming up. Under old business, I don't have anything. Does anybody have anything that you want to go back and look at? The first order of our new business is approval of the minutes of 314, or is this 315 Canvas?
315, don't they? It was 315.
315. Okay, that's what I thought. Friday. This is the approval of the minutes for March 15th. Last Friday, we had our certification of the vote, which is called Canvas. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I move the minutes be approved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 15th. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. The second item on our agenda is the second primary absentee meeting times. The actual meeting dates are, I think, prescribed by statute. The first one being Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, and the last being the Monday before the May 14th, second primary election day. And then, of course, on election day, we'll review absentee ballots that come in up to that time. So the business that we have here is, I think the statute provides for the absentee ballot review time to be, I believe, 5 PM. Isn't that correct? And we've had to change that by vote each time.
It's a resolution adopted by the board to establish an earlier counting of the absentee ballots.
Yes, and we wanted to try and keep that within the business hours. So the proposed resolution proposes a 3 PM to 5 PM time for our absentee ballot review meetings. I'd like to have a motion to establish the 3 PM to 5 PM time slot.
It's not a time slot, it's a beginning time for the board to review the ballots. It's a set time to start your absentee meeting, but not a time slot from 3 to 5.
The time to start though would be 3.
The
So
time, if the board wants it to be 3, or if the board chooses it to be some other time, that's all you need to do. Or you can keep it at 5 o'clock. It's just up to you. Historically, we've always had our absentee meetings earlier, so that we
Yeah.
weren't working later into the
Right.
day, but that's certainly up to the board.
This is what we've been doing.
And
I mean, to make
the-
this
No,
really simple,
I just
there's,
want-
there's, you know,
In that case, I would move that the board change the absentee review times for its meetings therein to 3 o'clock, 3 PM.
And would that also include the election day?
I believe can we do that on election day, or do we need to,
Yeah, you can, but you still have to close the early voting polls at 7:30.
7:30, yeah. We might want to have a separate,
And that's for.
so
the
we don't have to do
election-
2 meetings in one day.
That's for the election day meeting.
Yeah.
could we do both at 7:30? Or we have to do?
No, you
We have to
cannot
do
both
one,
at
so we're gonna have 2
This is
meetings,
new.
one
Well,
way or the other.
you could maybe do, you could, because you can't start your meeting at 7:30 and close the polls at 7:30. So the meeting would need to start prior to 7:30 so that we can be in place and have everything ready to close the polls at
That
7:30.
makes sense.
So I don't know if you want to have your meeting at 6 or 6:30, I don't know, but the polls have to close at 7:30. What are your thoughts, Kelly?
Would there be enough lead time if we started the meeting on that day at 7?
For this election, probably, I mean, what you're doing is are you not closing the absentee by mail polls? They're doing that abstract. Is that not what's happening on that meeting?
The election day meeting? Yeah, I guess it could be. I mean, I thought that was done at the pre-election meeting.
Close the polls the day before.
The
Absentee.
absentee.
They need
So,
to have it.
so you could have your meeting at 7 and then we can close all the polls. You can close your absentee by mail and the early voting sites. Do your abstract, because the abstract has to be done for the absentee by mail.
So we're talking about doing one meeting at 7 o'clock, starting at 7 o'clock election evening? Is that what
That
I'm
was my
hearing?
suggestion. But I, of course, deferred to them in terms of process, to Jack and Kelly.
I mean, I know we do expect a smaller
Yeah.
participation at this one than otherwise, but I mean, I'd leave it to staff to tell us what to write. So that we don't get in the way of their other statutory requirements. 7 o'clock work.
Yeah, it works. I mean, you've got 30 minutes before we can close the polls. So I guess so.
Or just start it all at 7:30 and just keep going. Can we do that?
Didn't you just say that we can't start the meeting And close the polls at the same time,
Close
which
the-
is the reason we're talking about this right
Yes,
now.
because the polls need to be closed at 7.
So 7 o'clock would probably be the most practical thing. I'd like to back up to the original thing we were doing, where we were setting the time, not the time slot, for our absentee ballot review meetings, for each of our absentee ballot review meetings, through the last Tuesday of the date that we have as that official, those dates. And then there's the next one would be the Monday before the election day, would it not? There'd be another absentee ballot review meeting on that day. Isn't that what we just did? So all of those meetings could be set at 3 p.m. And then we can do it in the same motion. We can say that on election day, our meeting will be at 7 p.m. and it will include the absentee ballot review before we close the polls. We can do that in one motion or not.
Review absentee ballots at the 7:30 closing the polls meeting. Your absentee ballot review is done up until election night. The pre-election meeting, your absentee ballots are done until the supplemental. Is that not correct, Kelly?
That's correct.
That's right.
You would
That's the
not
last time we
review-
look at them.
So
The
you would-
last time that you would review absentee ballots by mail is by 5 p.m. the day before the election day.
Okay.
And then anything else that comes in will be reviewed on a supplemental meeting. So the only thing you're doing with absentees on election day is closing the polls, running the tapes, and doing an abstract.
Okay, so that's a
So if
separate
you
thing.
do that within 30 minutes, fine, because then you're going to close the polls for the 3 early voting
Right.
states.
Right, okay.
So
And
they
we do,
may-
but we do review the absentee ballots on Monday, the day before election day,
If there are any.
if there are any.
Correct.
Okay, so, I think we did this past time. We came in and we had a 3 o'clock meeting on that Monday.
Yeah.
So we could collect that up in the motion.
But that was set because,
That's an absentee meeting, so when you say set them at 3 p.m., that one is just automatically included.
Right, right, okay. So the motion would be, and I'll make the motion, that I move that we set the absentee ballot review meeting times at 3 p.m. And that would include the Monday before Election Day. And then we can set the time for the Tuesday Election Day meeting as another motion.
Okay.
Okay.
If that's a motion, I'll second that.
Okay, it is.
Motion.
Is there any other discussion or questions?
No.
Okay, all right. Seeing that there are none, all those in favor of setting a 3 p.m. time for absentee meetings, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Okay. The next item that popped up right then was resetting the time for our Election Day meeting such that we don't have to have 2 meetings 4.5 hours apart on the same day. Would somebody like to make a motion on what time to start that meeting? This is the one where before we close the polls at 7:30.
Let me ask a question because with the back and forth, was it the sense that a 7 p.m. time would be sufficient for us to complete that?
I think that's what
And
you,
then allow staff to begin the process at 7:30 that they have to do?
Yeah.
Am I? Okay. And I would move a election day meeting be established at 7 p.m.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, it's been moved and seconded to have our meeting time, have one meeting on Election Day, and that meeting will be at 7 before we close the poll. We'll start the meeting then, and we'll close the polls at 7:30. Is there any other discussion or questions? Okay, seeing that there are none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, so that has been condensed to one meeting on the Election Day. That'll save us from doing a lot of driving around. All right, the next item on our agenda is the relocation of the Hatteras precinct for the second primary election, May 14th. Jackie, would you like to give us some background on that, please?
so yesterday I was contacting the precincts to make sure that the sites were secure for the May 14th primary. And in speaking with the chief judge at the Hatteras precinct, she advised me that the Hatteras Civic Center has a special event that has been planned for 400 plus people, some kind of fishing tournament, I believe it is, and that facility will not be able to be utilized for a voting precinct on election day. So the Hatteras Community Building, which is a mile or so back up the road, has been reserved for election day. And that will be the voting precinct for the residents of Hatteras on May 14th for the second primary. And in order for us to relocate that precinct, the board would need to adopt a resolution for the temporary relocation of the Hatteras precinct to the Hatteras Community Center. The residents of Hatteras Island have voted at that facility before, so I don't think it's going to be an issue for them to go back there for this second primary, since it will be a small election. So that resolution would need to be adopted. I drafted a resolution for the board's review and approval. If you need to make changes or you wish to have something else drawn up, then just let me know.
No way we can have them transfer to. That past the deadline for that.
I think that's past the deadline, but we can, and Kelly's question was, could we have those voters transferred to another precinct? Because we are running into an issue also with the chief judge and one of the judges not being able to work on May the 14th because they are involved in this event. So I didn't know what else to do at the time. When I got the information, I contacted the state, and this is what they said that we could do. So I don't know what the board wants to do.
So they didn't mention transferring voters to the adjacent precinct at Frisco, did they?
No, I didn't ask that question.
Uh-huh. From what I understand in the statutes, because it's an adjacent border touching situation between the two precincts, that we would be allowed to do that. There are some efficiencies in doing that, especially in staffing, particularly. We would need another resolution, I would think, for that, wouldn't we?
Yes, and I was just thinking, in this instance, we have to notify the voters of Hatteras that their precinct has changed anyway.
Right.
So the notification would just be that you have to go to Frisco versus a different location.
I think the transfer also requires state approval.
Right. I would think it would, but
I've never done it, so I'm not real familiar with it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know.
all right. How do you all feel about that? About what we have here? We've got two choices that look like
I
they
don't
could-
know if the Frisco facility, I don't know if the parking and I don't know how that would, accommodate at this point. I don't know.
But it will be open.
Yes.
Yes.
Already.
It's the fire station. I don't know that there would be a massive influx of voters, but,
And I'm not sure, we would have to work out the logistics as far as how they keep the ballots and all separated, because although they will be utilizing the same facility, they will still be using separate equipment.
So we might need another person to help there maybe because of that.
no,
That's not
I
what I'm
think,
saying.
I'm not sure. We may have to code the ballots or something. I don't know if we'd have to set it up with two DS200s.
It would have to be two DS200s, just like we did in 2020 when went to the schools and had Collington and Kill Double Hills in
Mhm.
one
So that's
location.
but that's not a transfer.
No, it's not a transfer, but.
We could table if you wanted to and do a little more research, or they could just,
Well, we're getting short on time is why I was trying to do it, because we've got, you have to give a 45-day notice, as you see in that resolution, and then we have to have 30 days prior to the election to notify the voters.
Okay.
So
So we
we're-
should probably keep it in
We're getting
Hatteras.
short on time, and that's why I was suggesting to go this route and didn't even cross my mind about the transfer, because this was the most expedient way to handle
On the fly,
getting
like you did.
another location. But we do have to have 45 days notice prior to the election, and we have to have 30 days prior to election to notify the voters based on statute.
45 days falls somewhere in the first week of April.
I don't have my calendar.
You got it?
The 31st of March.
Yeah.
That would be the date. What I see is that we can make this decision in enough time. I don't see any reason why we can't. The biggest inconvenience would be for us to come back to vote on it, because we don't have the resolution here in front of us right now. I mean, is there something I'm missing? But that seems to be, and then,
We
Now
would be
this-
dependent upon the state approval if we change the precincts. So that injects, you know, an unknown delay.
oh,
We
what?
don't- Unknown delay. We
Yeah.
don't know how long it would take for the state to get back to us on that.
And the
Okay.
statute that's here refers specifically to the temporary relocation. I'm not sure, I would have to research the statute on the transfer of precinct. That would be a totally different statute.
Kelly, I think you were the one, you mentioned that Chief Judge and another judge in Hatteras are fishing instead.
They are not
They're
fishing,
unavailable.
they are unavailable to work because they are involved in
The other
putting on
event.
this event.
Okay,
One of the judges is actually the caterer for the event, and the chief judge is one of the coordinators of the event.
fishing sounds like more fun, but do we have a judge who would be available?
I don't.
We
know.
don't
We don't
know.
know
I
yet.
mean, this information was
You have
just,
to have a minimum of 3 people, so I'm gonna have to find a chief judge and another judge.
And
And,
an assistant then?
well, we don't necessarily have to have an assistant if I can find a chief judge and 2 judges.
Okay,
I mean, I think it's gonna be slow enough that 3 people is enough, but the problem is training someone who knows how to handle all the processes and do everything correctly, because it still has to be done. And we've not had any new people in Hatteras, and this is, Laura's been the chief judge and Dee's been the judge for years.
mhm.
And so, finding someone brand new is gonna be interesting. I don't even have any applications for Hatteras, but we'll see. Maybe we can use the 3 that are assigned. Hopefully they'll be willing to move up, but, you know, quite often we run into issues where no one wants to be the chief judge because they don't want that responsibility.
Right.
So we'll have to, you know, I haven't talked to anyone, so.
How much confidence do you all have about being able to get an answer on this from the state rapidly? Is that a big deal? It sounds to me like
I
you've been
would
able to
hope
get
that They
them.
would answer us because they understand the time restraints. If we were to do a little research, even if we end up coming back to the same, that just staying with Hatteras is the best option.
Personally, I think that that's the better choice. And if you feel like you can get a quick response on that, I don't mind driving back over here to make a good decision and have a vote on something like that. In fact, we can recess the meeting if you want to go try and reach them right now, as far as I'm concerned. You know, if you think you can get an answer,
I don't
but we
think-
won't have a resolution
Yeah,
to
I
vote
don't
on
think
anyway,
they'll-
so there's no
they'll approve
point.
Anything that's not kind of nailed down.
Yeah.
I think Jackie and I'm not sure I mean, that's up to Jackie if she wants to go that route to research, or up to you.
it's actually the board's call. If you want to research the transfer option or you want to go with the relocation, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. It's the board's decision, and we would conform to whatever choice is made within the guidelines.
And we appreciate that.
I will say Frisco's very small, so if we did have to set up for 2 precincts, that's kind of, that might be a little bit of a challenge. I mean, but with only needing 3 workers, I think we still could swing it. I'm just concerned about finding staffing for Hatteras. So,
That's always a bigger problem, in my opinion, is trying to find the right people and enough people who, are dedicated to the mission.
Well,
You know.
worst case scenario, if you can't find workers in Hatteras, we're talking about possibly a transition to Frisco. What's the availability of workers in Frisco? I mean, are we challenged in the same way?
no.
No?
Well, not yet. I mean, I wasn't here yesterday, so I'm just coming into this. So, I mean, we haven't even contacted the workers yet.
Mhm.
That was this week's job. We just had to get through Canvas.
Yeah.
So that was this week's agenda for us, was to begin contacting workers to make sure that they are available for this election. That's always a chore to see and move people around. So
I don't
I can't
know
answer
that the,
that. I just don't know. So
Would we have the availability of, say, if we can't find anyone in Hatteras, transitioning assuming people are available in another precinct, would we be able to do that, to transfer them temporarily over?
that's what we were talking about, is maybe just sending them to Frisco.
Mhm.
And then, I don't know. Just have to-
the parking at Frisco, I've been there, it's fairly tight. They can't park in front of the garage base for the fire department, but they've got, the place they use to the west end of it is a grassy area that's, probably 30 by 40. And that's where the electioneering occurs. And I don't know how much electioneering you're going to have on this kind of election. And then they have another one at the east end, which is the main parking. I don't know, it probably could accommodate 10 cars at max, off the road. So,
Which is probably plenty for this. I mean, another option could be, if you would prefer, we could go with Hatteras, and I could look at staffing it at a precinct, maybe with some workers from Buxton that would be willing, to travel. Maybe if we pay them a bonus, they're a little more skilled. They handle more voters, so they would be willing to work out a precinct. And that's something that you can approve. If we don't have any Hatteras residents, able to work, we could certainly staff them at a precinct and keep Hatteras, that's a lot less.
If we staff out a precinct, that's our call. We don't need to go back to the state and
No, you
discuss
can
that.
just approve it. It would just be a due diligence. If we don't have what we need from Hatteras, we're allowed to go outside. So that could be a route we could take as well.
I prefer that. I think it's cleaner to keep this issue of location out of Raleigh, just because of everything else that's going on, and I wouldn't want it to get lost and jam us all up. We can do this now. We can deal with staffing going forward, and certainly at staff's convenience here. If we need to come in and do something out of cycle, that can be organized if we have to vote on something to meet a deadline that otherwise we'd miss. So I would endorse, and I know, Skip, you were planning on reading this, but I would endorse adopting the transfer within Hatteras, and then allow our staff to look at the staffing situation for election day, which is the only day you're going to need it, right? And transfer staff from other Hatteras Island locations as required if, people aren't needed. And certainly, perhaps a resolution could include that just to have a clear indication on record that we are directing our staff to fill those positions.
I don't think we need to, I mean, that's just, I don't think you need to, because that is allowed for in statute anyway, that we have to staff our precincts, so,
So-
that would be something we do, that we may end up doing anyway for other precincts, because it
Okay,
was an unexpected date, so we may find that we have chief judges and judges across the county that aren't able to work, and we're shuffling and changing appointed positions and things. So we've done that in the past where we've had a closed session close to elections and have come to you with a list of people that
Mhm.
need to be moved or shifted either in their appointment assignment or their precinct. So I think.
Can you remind me of something? When you move a election official from one precinct to another, is that something that you run by Raleigh too?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I wasn't
that's
sure.
Your, you would just approve that.
Right.
Because they're appointed, so you would just approve that as a temporary appointment at a precinct for this election, because we were unable to find someone. It's not something we'd like to do or we, make a habit of. It's only if we can't fill that position with someone in the precinct.
All right. Jackie, do you know whether this requires a unanimous vote?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any other angle to this that you want to share?
My only further comment is, since I take the minutes, I'm going to have the minutes reflect the discussion specifically on staff and the possibility that there might need to be some reorganization. I realize authority exists, and
Yeah.
I just think that would be useful to have it in the minutes, but go ahead. I'd certainly endorse the resolution that's been circulated to us, if you want to go
Okay.
ahead and put it in.
All right. So what I'll do before we go any farther is I'll read the resolution. And one of the components of the resolution is a citing of the North Carolina statute that allows for this. I'm not going to read the whole statute to everyone, but I will cite which statute it is. So the only thing that I saw in here is just in the text, the word temporary should say temporarily in the title block. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution. This is a draft resolution. Resolution by the Dare County Board of Elections to temporarily relocate the Hatteras precinct for the second primary election on May 14th, 2024. Whereas North Carolina Statute 163-128 provides that the County Board of Elections shall have power from time to time by resolution to establish, alter, discontinue, or create such new election precincts or voting places as it may deem expedient. Whereas the County Board of Elections has examined the need for a change in the voting location for the Hatteras precinct to conduct the May 14th, 2024 second primary election and deems voters therein to temporarily move from their usual location at the Hatteras Civic Center and to relocate as follows: Hatteras Community Building, 57689 North Carolina Highway 12, Hatteras, North Carolina. Whereas North Carolina Statute 163-128, and that's the one that gives us permission, now therefore be it resolved that the Dare County Board of Elections hereby temporarily relocates the voting locations for the May 14th, 2024 primary election for the voters in the Hatteras precinct as designated in this resolution. These temporary relocations will expire on May 15th, 2024. All right, so that's the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution as presented with one correction in the text. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, then the resolution is adopted. And we'll go ahead and lock that in. I think it's probably a good idea for us to streamline our efforts as much as anything at this moment. So, does the board have any other business for today? Yes.
I do. Going back to the approval of minutes on the agenda, it's 3:14, which I had circulated, but I had also circulated minutes for 3:15 last night. And both dates were being tossed around
Right.
as we were considering an approval. I just wanted to make sure that we have approved both the 14th and the 15th.
I think we approved the 14th on Friday in that meeting.
Well, I was just looking at the agenda. Because I don't recall that we had.
Yeah, it was approved on the 15th because in the old business, you said the minutes of the March 14th board meeting were considered.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So this, the minutes here.
The agenda was just an error on my.
Okay,
my behalf.
That's fine. I'm easily confused. Thank you.
All right.
We're
Does-
clear.
Does the
Good.
board have any other business? Jackie, do you have any other business?
No.
Okay. Seeing that there's no other business, our next regular meeting is, of the Dare County Board of Elections is Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. And, we'll see you there. And I think that's all that I have.
The first absentee meeting is April the 9th. That would be your next meeting.
Right. The 9th meeting is the absentee board
That
meeting.
would be your next meeting.
Yeah, that's right. That comes up before. Thank you. All right. Seeing that there's no other business, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Here you are.
I know.
All right, thanks.